The March to October and franchise feature premiere has finally come, and in this video we're going to be going over everything that they talked about in regards to franchise and March to October coming to MLB The Show 22. So I feel like this is kind of important to point out. They have trade metric and trade logic within franchise, and those are two different things. Trade metric, as we can see, is the foundation for evaluating players based on their age, potential, performance, and team control and contract values, but that is different from trade logic. One thing they mentioned last year that they're clarifying now this year is that they had done some 30-year sims, and the simulations were done to study how rank relates to potential age, and rank relates to WAR, and WAR relates to average annual value and stuff like that. So the 30-year sims did not have to do with the trade logic, trade metric stuff. Those were to study the stuff that you see here on the screen. And with all that stuff kind of working together, they have the metrics that can project players' value across team control or contract years, and that's how everything's kind of intertwined in franchise mode. Also, the stuff we're talking about right now, I'm pretty sure is new to the show 22. It's going to be similar to previous years, but they had a foundation that they didn't really like, and they rebuilt that foundation for this metric stuff for MLB The Show 22. And going off what we talked about, this is going to help them, as y'all can see on the screen. It's going to help the game allow for more logic system improvements. The trades and everything like that should hopefully be making more sense this year than they have ever in MLB The Show games. So one specific example of how it's improved this year is they're using a 3-year weighted WAR. So in the past games, when WAR has been a factor in that logic, those metrics, they've only been taking the most recent year. Now, kind of like how Diamond Dynasty roster update works, they're taking the 3-year weighted WAR average from that player's last 3 seasons. So that should definitely help improve it a little bit. And then that second bullet point here, we have additional formula improvements that will improve values for AAA position players, because I think their minor league logic and trades and prospects was pretty flawed. So that was about the trade metrics, and now we're going to be talking about the trade logic. Those are two different things, like we said. So the first couple examples we have of this improved trade logic and stuff like that, the kind of new systems in franchise, is one, rebuilding teams will no longer be placing players that are under long-term times of team control on the trade block, and then teams pushing for a postseason spot will be more interested in prospects, is what they said. A real life example of this is when the Cubs went ahead and picked up Aroldis Chapman trying to push for that World Series, and they traded to the Yankees Gleyber Torres. So that's kind of an example of what they're talking about that actually happened in real life. Another improvement is that different players are going to be weighted differently. A really good player is going to be weighted a lot more than, say, like a reliever or a closing pitcher. You know, a center fielder that's an MVP candidate is probably going to be valued more than a relief pitcher that's really good. So hopefully, if this actually works how they're saying it does, we're not going to see guys like Mike Trout or Juan Soto, you know, superstar type players, the best of the best players, going for nothing, right? Not being able to trade it for just like 1 or 2 minor league players that no one's ever heard of, which we've seen happen in the past sometimes.
Juan Soto now, a trade for Juan Soto is going to take the farm. And on this right here, if you look at our screen, this was in year 2 of a sim that we just recently did. And you can see that Juan Soto was traded, but the Yankees had to give up 2 of the top 5 prospects in the game to get him. And that was a huge thing, and I'm really happy to see this in the game. So when we had this sim in studio, we were excited. We were like fist bumping. We were really excited about this. So this is a huge improvement.
Okay, well, Tim's a Yankees fan, so he is really excited. The rest of us, maybe not quite to that level, but we're very happy about the improvements to the trade logic. All right, one last note on trade logic is that players will no longer be traded immediately after signing in the offseason. This is something that we'd seen and we weren't happy with, and we knocked that out as well.
I'm not a big franchise guy. I'm not a big trade guy in real life either. I don't know players' value and what teams should be getting back for that. So let me know on that specific example in the comments if you would. How do you feel about that trade logic that we just saw compared to other versions of MLB The Show? Because for me, I'm sitting here like, I feel like it would take a little bit more to get Juan Soto, but at the same time, I'm not a franchise guy. I don't pay a lot of attention to trade value stuff in real life as well. So I need y'all's feedback on that down in the comments section. Now here's just a little summary of everything that we just covered in case it was hard to follow what I was saying. Here's a little bit of a summary of that stuff. So this seems like a huge change. Correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past, the budget has worked where it's kind of taken into consideration every player in the organization, and now the budget is only focused on the 40-man roster. That seems like a really big and good change. So here's kind of a look at the franchise screens before the logic changes and after the logic changes, and with the team budgets and everything like that. Hopefully y'all can see this okay. That's a little quick summary of the most recent stuff we've talked about in this video, and they did mention as well that apparently free agency, because of these changes, seem to be improved. You're not seeing players in free agency year after year. You're seeing teams pick up a lot more free agents because they have more budget space available, so that's a pretty cool change, and it sounds like that's going to help improve franchise and franchise logic in general. As y'all can see, for contracts with the contract improvements that we're going to be talking about now, the max term is now 15 years. I believe that might be up from 10, and then the max AAV is now $35 million. I think that might be up from $25 million, but that should make for some bigger contracts, bigger deals, and kind of reflect more of what we're seeing in real life. So here are the summary points for the contract improvements this year. As y'all can see, that's pretty cool, and I feel like they're making a lot of nice quality of life changes to franchise. So two-way players can now DH every single day that they're not pitching, and they will also regain stamina while they're DHing. And if a player who's a pitcher or a position player, you know, they have secondaries, they can now become two-way players if their attributes are good enough. So that's pretty cool to see. And if y'all want to see a summary of those two-way player improvements, here they are. This honestly might be the easiest way, at least for this feature premiere, for me to showcase the changes to y'all. So they're talking about now the free agency period changes, and as y'all can see, players now only sign during the exclusive signing period if they have a very high interest in re-signing with a team, and then free agents will weigh offers longer and sign throughout the entire offseason, which reflects real life trends. Now here's the bullet points for the roster logic improvements. The first one, arbitration and renewable decisions are now based on player metric. Logic changes now will improve CPU tendencies to keep players at a value to the organization. Value players are now more likely to be protected on the 40-man prior to the Rule 5 draft using the player metric. Logic improvements to 40-man roster construction, and then potential and age for the top 100 prospects and more are accurate this year in the game. The player metric thing confuses me a little bit. They were kind of saying, I think that's just the value that a player has to a team. So if a player has a couple down years, you know, 2 down years in a row, that team's going to be less likely to sign that player in free agency. And during the season, if they're still having a down year, they might actually go out and make a move to replace that player who's been having kind of a down period for that team for quite a while. That's the way I was understanding the player metric. Also, they no longer have any fictional players, at least when you first start a franchise, on the rosters. They don't have the developers on the rosters anymore. It's all real players is what they're saying. Now here are community requests. These are stuff that they've added in and or improved to the game to franchise mode that was requested by the community. First one is that pitcher stamina will be accurately reflected in the postseason. The transaction log has been expanded and stores 4 times more information. And then there are now separate injury sliders for simulation and in-game. So in the postseason, we're going to be able to have a 3 or 4 man rotation, and a pitcher could go, your ace could go with only, you know, 3 or 4 days rest and still have enough stamina to start that game. So that is it for the franchise changes, the franchise improvements for this video. I'm going to keep this one in its own video, and then March to October will be its separate one. So please let me know all your thoughts, all your feedback on this feature premiere, the franchise changes, improvements, new stuff, everything. Let me know your thoughts, those franchise players, down in that comment section. Like, comment, subscribe, social medias, all that good stuff. Thanks guys for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you in a different video talking about March to October. Peace out.